microphones, unfortunately, so we're just gonna do it without the old-fashioned way. If you don't hear it in the back, just wave and we'll try to speak louder.
Oh, come
closer. Come closer.
Yeah.
I would first love to introduce my lovely guests over here, Isjed, Dinah, Lashawn, and Olave, and I would like to ask you to... and would you please introduce yourselves?
Okay, and I will start. I'm Isjed, Pakistani, Dutch, Muslim, gender queer, transgender, at least not gay anymore. So, yes. So that's basically me, and I'm a social worker, activist, working with bicultural Muslim LGBTQI+ people, and basically doing all the things I can try to do. Yes.
Okay. In the intersection of everything, I'm first of all consider myself a transgender woman. I'm Jewish. I have an Asian background. I am having HIV from age 21, so I'm a trans person living with HIV. Struggling with HIV sometimes. Then I'm a sex worker. That's an intersection. Then I'm also a nurse. I work for homeless and LGBT homeless people, sex workers, and I'm also activist for sex workers, trans sex workers, doing gathering groups, social groups here in Amsterdam to get ourselves on the agenda. That's a little bit me.
I'm Lashawn. I'm 22 years old. I am a writer, actress, actor, performer. I recently, I don't want to say start, but I corrected me. I starred in a documentary, one of the 5 people. The documentary was called Genderbende, and it aired on Dutch national television. It was a very good film. I was very proud to be a part of it, and it really explored the youth's take on gender, non-conformism, and the discoverance and explorance of that. So yeah, that's it.
Well, my name is Olave. So I write, I'm an activist, I'm an organizer with LGBTQIA youth in Rotterdam. I dabble a little bit in politics. I was on the election, so like the electoral list for Article 1 in the February? March, yes. And what do I do? I'm identified as a non-binary, trans femme. And yeah, that's about it for me.
Thank you. And my name is Laura. I'm part of the organization of TranScreen, and I will be the moderator for today. So the buzzword for this panel is intersectionality. So first I would like to establish what we mean when we talk about intersectionality. Does any of you want to start off? Trying to
go on.
Yeah, sure.
Oh shit. Okay. Well, it's really hard to talk about like what we consider to, because I think there's no such we-ness in intersectionality. I think that intersectionality has become a sort of a buzzword, and it is not originally wasn't intended to be some trendy buzzword that people can just throw around all the time, like, oh, we're so intersectional, and like, just technically speaking, where it comes from historically, it is a term, a sort of a tool that was developed by Kimberly Crenshaw, a legal scholar in America who was doing a lot of analysis work on how particularly black women were at an intersection in society where they were being discriminated on the basis of their gender and the basis of their race, and the complexities in terms of legal theory of getting it right. So one of the cases that she analyzed is a case where a black woman who was being discriminated at her work, but the employer was hiring black men and was hiring white women, but not black women, was not able to actually file for discrimination because it was, the courts will go like, no, but this person hires black men and hired white women, so you're not being discriminated legally. And on the same time, like basically, so it is an analysis tool to look at what's going on in society, but also to develop policy, and the main idea being that if you are able to create policy that actually empower or elevate basically the person who's at the most intersections of oppression and prejudice in a particular country, you're doing, then you're being effective. So policies that do not uplift, say, black trans women, but do, for example, uplift black women, are not just there yet, right? So if you go a step further, and what in Dutch they will call the zwakste belang, but where you go to the most vulnerable person, most marginalized individual and communities, if you're able to create policies that uplift them, then you're being effective. Then you can talk about intersectional policy.
Thank you. Does anyone want to add to that?
What I like to add is, like, for me in my life, my intersections are just the layers, the different things that I am in my existence. So it comes from my offspring, it comes from colonialism, it comes from being part here in the Western society. It's everything that I am in this person that you see, and everything I told you. Those are my intersections, my being. So, and that's a.
I agree. I agree that it speaks when we think about intersectionalism. It speaks to a particular lived experience of people. Where I think it's really strange for somebody to call me an intersectional feminist, because it's what I live. It's who I, it's like I live at different intersections, so it's not necessarily something that I do or I can. So it speaks to an embodied and lived reality for a lot of people, right? And so I think when we think about feminism that isn't intersectional, then we're really talking about feminism that is exclusive, that is like basically not taking into account the lived realities and embodied experiences of a lot of people, right? So, so I agree with you indeed that there's definitely a lived reality and embodiment aspect to it, yes.
I also think that intersectionality, it's very important to talk about it, to understand it, especially in this day and age, because it contradicts with what we've been brought up on, what we've been told that we can only be one thing, and also especially when it comes to marginalized groups, the dehumanizing of those groups, of saying that they're just one thing, they're just monsters, they're just whatever, so I think it's very important that people understand that you can be more than one thing, and that those stereotypes then they balance each other out. And I myself too experience it in my own life when because I'm a gender nonconformist, and one day I'm experienced as a male, black male, other day as a black female, and I really experienced the reaction of other people without me doing anything, without me adjusting really my true self, just my outer appearance. So that's really interesting to see how people then react differently and really have these rules that are nonsense. And for me, for the person who lives that, it makes it very easy to see right through the illusion that are these rules, so yeah.
Isjed, anything you want to add?
No, I'm thinking about so much life experiences. Like sometimes you are just being treated as the Muslim, like in your sports club, and you have to tell somebody why another Muslim is not handing over the wine, and I'm drinking wine into the nose of that other person. I'm like, what are you not seeing? And why should I have to explain that another Muslim doesn't want to touch wine, and sometimes it's also about saying to my friends, why are you making these jokes about transgenders? Why are you using these negative words? And people are like, yes, it's like so many kind of different realities, and also realities like, now I grow older and then I'm suddenly really Pakistani and then I'm really Dutch, and it's like so many layers of identity and so many mixes of that, that it's like sometimes even almost impossible for me to understand.
Because you live on so many different strands of
Yes.
identity that intersect into your personality. Yeah.
But it's also like, I think being able to raise your voice if you have like a position, like when I was working here in Amsterdam and some people decided that in a project for bicultural LGBTQI+, it's not important that bicultural people will work there. I was like, are you really fucking kidding me? So it's also then raising your voice to your transgender director you have. I mean, she was really a nice person, but it doesn't mean that when people are nice, because a lot of times they just don't understand us, and in that way, one of the ladies was saying, you even don't have to understand us, just listen to us.
Yeah.
And so I also, when I was mostly saying that I'm a Muslim gay Pakistani, like 5-6 years ago, I went into the LGBT adviescommissie, so advice commission in Utrecht, because there was like nobody, no people of color, of course no Muslim, and still you will see things there happening, like if I take another friend with me and she or he or they will say something about blackface, then people will be like, no, we don't have to talk about that. So it's, there are so many things happening at the same time. And even that friend of mine was saying to me, I can't imagine you are doing this now for 5 years, because there is still so much violence. Yeah, I can also go on and on, because there are so
There's
many,
so many things
yeah.
going on together
Yes.
at the same time. Thank
Yes.
you. I want to touch upon what you mentioned, the erasure of voices, especially intersectional voices. In the documentary, we also hear a lot of stories of intersectional trans people being erased from narratives, being erased from the media, being erased from history. Does anyone want to comment on that, maybe?
I have a lot of difficulty sort of with intersectional trans people, and I don't really know what that exactly means. But erasure, I think, you know, we're describing these experiences where basically we're not allowed, or at least we're not, whether it's in perception or whether it is in systems of oppression, that we're not the full depth and breadth of our entire identity is not necessarily allowed to thrive and allowed to be nurtured and be deserving of care and nurture. Like, I think what we have all experienced this element of where you go, for example, in the gay community, and people sort of, you know, need you to be one-dimensional. You need to have one story and one that, you know, that can be. Like when we are organizing the Pride, for example, and we're organizing all kinds of intersectional blocks in protest against the commercialization of Pride here in the Netherlands as well. And we have people attack us online, LGBT people attack us online and be like, this is ridiculous, everything is fine, like why y'all, you know, what does police racial profiling have anything to do with LGBT causes? Well, I don't know. I'm sort of the target of that, right? So there's a lot of that sort of only having one story and not being allowed, or at least being deserving and worthy of dignity and, you know, and of depth and of richness as an individual. And I notice a lot with the LGBT movements really need me to have just one, like, very clear, you know, agenda, a very clear problem and needs, and that as much as possible fits with theirs. And I think when we talk about being of different marginalized communities as individuals and how we're positioned in that, I'm not intersected. I'm not fragmented. I'm whole. You know.
Yeah.
It's that in different ways, society will not allow different aspects of who I am to thrive. on the basis of those aspects.
Are all those things at the same time?
Well,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I can't walk down the street and just be trans.
Yeah.
You know, I will be black. There will be white boys telling me that, you know, oh, man 5 or whatever, and I'm sorry for the sort of triggering words perhaps there, but there will also be police that will just at the same time be like, do you look like, you know, not like a criminal, you know, and so on. It just keeps on going. In work, you know, like, how easy is it for me to be an angry black man, you know, when an aggressive black man when I raise my voice, and or be a sort of hysterical black woman, a trans woman, you know, like, it just, I cannot be just one thing. I'm all of those things at the same time.
Anyone want to comment on that further?
Well, I think that something that Miss Major said in the film was that, I'm trying to remember exactly what she said, but I'm paraphrasing here, but she said something along the lines of that she wants to uplift the trans community, and if they're accepted, that will benefit the rest of the community, which I strongly believe. And when we're talking about intersectionality and the LGBT community, for example, not accepting racial issues as issues they also need to tackle, I think that really, I think we've really come at a point right now when we see whether you're going to marches for yourself, for your ego, just because you happen to be gay and you struggle with, you know, or trans or whatever, and you struggle with those problems and you just want to speak out because you want to have it better for yourself. I think that what this documentary shows, what Ms. Major stands for and her organization, is that you need to tackle the problems regardless whether they affect you directly or not. Because in the end, you know, we're one race, we have to solve this together. And all these problems are not, it's not the task of the marginalized people only to solve them. It's a task of everyone to solve them.
Thank you, yes.
Yes.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I was thinking, the movie, it shows like the US reality,
Yes.
which I also live in New York, being in the LGBT community as a person of color, as a youth of color, a long time ago. But we can transform it into our society, because when we face here in Amsterdam this kind of erasure, making it invisible, people sometimes are like, this is not happening, or I don't recognize it. While I'm in the same space as people who are witnessing this kind of issues, and there is the point where we need to find our coalition. If we speak up and we say, this is happening, this is our reality, everybody should be listening and be, okay, we don't doubt it, this is the reality that is lived within that intersection, within that group, marginalized group. If you don't have the same power, if you don't have the same privilege, don't even, I want to say fucking start, but don't start this conversation, because it's not real. It's not real. If you want to create a community, if you want to create a wholeness in your LGBT community, and especially in your trans community, the most marginalized groups, the ones who are addicted on drugs, the ones who are jobless, homeless, living with HIV, need to do sex work because they otherwise don't have any income, or not really an income to be at the same standards as the other trans and LGBT within that community. Do believe their reality. Don't brush it away. Don't argue and have conversations about it. Don't have endless meetings to find out if this is the reality. It is the reality if it's happening. And it does happen here in Amsterdam. Right on, I have just been in that team of people who have witnessed this kind of things, who have try to be a group, Trans United, a group strong, connected, who have again had the opportunity to have a vote, and our message was not heard. And I don't want to go into that whole thing, but it's the truth. We are erased, we are wiped off, and people are using our force, our energy. Sometimes it's good because you can also make money with us, okay? You can make money with us because you can get subsidized and whatever, and then you can get a thing done. But it's not always done for us. Because if we're not involved in it, then it won't help us any shit.
Because I think, I want to add to it, I think erasure, aside from the fact that it's actual racist violence oftentimes, but it's also exploitative violence. Huh? Like a lot of it has to do with basically hoarding resources. When you basically pretend as if trans people of color don't exist, or they don't have real issues, and they don't have particular needs in terms of resources, and you hoard it all to yourself. We see this in some sort of more like, also in the Netherlands, with some more white trans activist organizations, where you're like just, like all white people, like, and that's not by accident. That goes on purpose. That happens in a system that makes particularly people of color's lives not interesting, not worthy, and just simply not real. And that is exploitative and violent. Yeah, you're totally right. It's something that is not done just by accident. It's real violent.
I would like to go further into that idea that especially trans people of color don't have the opportunity to provide for themselves, that the social system doesn't care enough about trans people of color to provide for them, or for them to provide for themselves. We've also seen that in the film as well, that the community has to do...
I'm sorry, but because again, this is a sort of language that
Sorry.
it's not about trans people not being able to provide for themselves. We can very well provide for ourselves. It's just that it's taken away from us.
That's what I mean.
We're not allowed.
Yeah.
And I think those are the dynamics that sort of have some organizations, LGBT organizations, even now that the intersectional has become sort of a buzzword, that sort of advertise themselves as saviors well, it's mostly like, if you would just let us do our thing, if you wouldn't hoard the resources, if you wouldn't take it away, if you would not be part and be complicit in a system that marginalizes, it's not just it marginalizes people. Yeah.
So the system that doesn't give space, is that better?
That exploits, abuses, and oppresses.
Yes.
Exactly. Yeah.
Does anyone want to go further into that?
Well, I have this experience from the Amsterdam where I sort of like work. I work in an organization that helps homeless people, but also sex workers. And because I am a sex worker, and people knew that, they said, okay, you can do some hours in that organization to do whatever kind of, try to learn people how to work with sex workers. I saw in their waiting room a lot of trans people, and I know why they are there, of course. We are dealing with HIV, we're dealing with STDs, and we are on the streets. So we are in that waiting room. But I have to tell those nurses, why do you have trans people? And sometimes they don't even recognize them as trans people. And whenever there is a meeting, I'm excluded from the board meetings because they don't want to have me in there, because they don't want to see me on the same level. Well, I have a degree as a nurse. So these are the things that are happening, and this all has to do with that, like, erasure, like not... I sometimes think that I'm some sort of, how do you call this in English? I'm sort of like drifting. Gevaar. I'm a danger to them, and I don't know why, because I don't want to be dangerous. I want to help my own people.
But the thing is, for them, you are a danger, because like society is getting so super diverse that a lot of people can't grab us anymore. They just want to put us basically in one box, and now we are coming there and we are bicultural and we are all these identities together in one person. So people are looking at my faces when I'm talking about bicultural LGBT people, like, how can you know something about that? Huh? But why do I have to have a degree
in there to know something about it. It's my life, and actually I am in that way lucky that I have a bachelor at least. But it's also about knowing your privilege. But I mean, it's like I'm talking about my life and you are looking at me like, how can you know that? When I talk about Muslims, it's like, but you cannot know anything about it, because of course white people who are actually not Muslims, they basically know everything about us and they can call us terrorists when they want to. I mean, that's so, and that's why, so for me the positive thing is at least now we have this kind of discussions, this kind of amazing persons, that we also go there and get that position. But also to get that position, it's so violent, like, you are like never good enough, because I can never be white, and I also don't want to be, because I'm beautiful as I am. But yeah, but still people will say, when I am energetic, I am indeed an angry person, I am like not civilized, because of course white people invented civilization, they also invented the moon and the sun, everything. Yes, and it's also about telling me, like, in Pakistan, yeah, you poor guys, in Pakistan, it's like not that binary like in the fucking Netherlands, and I am also in that box here because I live here. In Pakistan, my people are out there, they are so visible, and I'm not saying we don't have problems in Pakistan, but we also have a lot of problems here.
Yeah.
So, and then it's always white people telling me, yeah, but you in Pakistan, and also people who don't know anything about it. I don't say I know all about Pakistan, because I actually also don't know, because I live here. But it's so annoying, but I'm so great that now we at least have our voices heard, and that we know what is happening, because like 10 years ago I was like, what is actually happening? And I mean, I'm bullied basically all my life, and I'm still being bullied. Even some directors of the COC, when they did speak with me, it was like, and I heard them saying, like 2 meters behind of me, oh okay, he's nice, but his voice, like, and I want to use my voice in the way I want, because I speak, yeah, I can continue, but I don't want to make it a negative story, but this is also something. We also have to explain that it's not a negative story, because of course we have to be positive. The things we face in daily life are not that positive.
No, this is
Yeah.
like microaggression on microaggression.
Yes.
Every day it is. It's like you bitten by all these mosquitoes every day. And then whenever you are like sort of like itching and you think like, okay, I'm exploding, then you're the black or the whatever of color angry person. So this is what it does to people. It makes people sad, it makes you depressed, you commit suicide, you die of a heart stroke in your car accident because you don't really are focused. These are the things that we live. Yeah. And it's very hard to explain it every time, and even to people in psychiatry, to tell them that why are your clinics full with us? It's because of this. If you just bully or sting someone as much as possible from all angles, then you get the results as you've just seen in this movie.
Is that what you want to? Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Everyone but you? Sure.
Yeah, no, I really do concur with everything that's being said here. I think I've said this before in other organizations that sort of, well, seem to deplore that they're all white and so on, and say, well, you know, it's not by accident. There's real systems that operate, that are exclusionary, that are oppressive, that are abusive and exploitative, right? So if you see yourself at your work and in your, you know, in your NGO, and you look around the table and you only have white people, you know, that is real violence. That's not by accident. It's not something that is happening in a way that sort of, you know, that you have this conversation with people like, yeah, but we really would like to be more diverse. We would like to be more intersectional. But they don't really want to go to the core of these issues of why it is like that, why that boardroom, for example, is all white. Yes, there are like glaring gaps in terms of, for example, competences and skills and degrees and whatnot for some of our people. You know why? Because starting from like high school, we're already being, you know, sort of, elementary school, being systematically being deprived of all the equal resources. You know, but daycare as well. Like there's a real issues politically in terms of how daycares for kids of communities of color, how it's set up than, for example, the more white Dutch ones, right? So, so it is systematic, and do you as an organization or as a group, are you going to invest in capacity building? Are you going to actually recruit people and not just say, but we posted it online, we recruited, but no one showed up, Are you going to look for people? Are you going to, help them build their competence? Are you going to invest in them? And are you going to create a safe space for them? Like the microaggressions really are destructive. Like they're called micro, it seems small, just micro, But there are a lifetime of aggressions that people have to go through in their professional, on the street, in public, and so on. And it is telling that indeed more of our people tend to be, diagnosed. For example, racial profiling is, one of the #1 causes for a lot of black young boys to have post-traumatic stress disorders that are undiagnosed most of the time, right? So what do we do as organizations that are LGBT if we're not, if we're not willing to look at the core and root issues in our society? If we go if we all get married, then it's gonna be fine. No, it won't. Just won't.
Lashawn, do you want to add anything?
Well, what I wanted to say was that there's obviously this shift going on where the ego is losing force, the ego is losing power, and the ego in the form of racism, in the form of white supremacy. I think that's a very important shift that's going on right now here in the Netherlands. We've seen it with the blackface tradition, that black people now actually speak out, on it, and are met with so much tegenwerking, so much resistance. Yes, thank you. Those things are happening, and it can be so. I'm at a loss for words. It can be so discouraging to see the president. I don't even want to say our president because I don't consider him to be mine, but Mark Rutte, to be telling people of color, youths of color, to fight themselves into society. Well, guess what I am, and it's not being accepted because, but I'm still going to do it. And I feel like that's really, really the only way, but I don't need him to tell that. I need him to, because he acknowledges the problem, and then he then, what I said earlier, puts it on us for us to solve it, but that's so not fair also because we didn't ask for it. We are not the cause of the problem, nor are white people, you can blame it on white people, but you can also say that they're not benefiting from it. And if you're not speaking out against it, then you're obviously helping it and keeping it intact. So that's a very important thing with all these microaggressions, that people need to understand that even if you are talking about someone's voice, you think it's too feminine or it's too non-white, too ethnic or whatever, you're contributing to that system of white supremacy, of ego, which is not helping yourself either. Because you are, as an LGBT member, on the one hand, you're white, so you can put down other people of color, but on the other hand, you're being discriminated against because you're not heterosexual. And it's so bizarre to me that people don't realize that, especially when you are forced to deal with discrimination when you're LGBT or whatever, and don't see that for what it is, and don't act on it, and don't use your life, use yourself as a instrument of social justice.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We have some time for questions or comments from the audience. Does anyone want to say something, ask something?
I'd like to say don't. I followed you in a lot of things you were saying, but I have to say that I do blame whiteness, not necessarily white people, but whiteness I think is a real problem, and I think it's okay and it's important that we denounce it and that we fight against it indeed. But whiteness is indeed a problem. They're construct. Both blackness and whiteness, they're both construct. And intersectionality and gender and all this, they're constructs, true, but they're really individuals living underneath them, right? There are choices that people are making that are not, that are either, uphold the system, that justify and legitimize the system, and people who benefit. White people do benefit from white supremacy, right? And look, I'm not gonna sit there and say that you're a bad person because you benefit from it. That's not what I'm about. What I'm about is you are accountable, though.
Yes.
And if you do renege on that accountability, the mere fact that you can go say things like I never knew is how this privilege comes about, and how it operates. And so I really think that indeed what you then end with, but you do need to fight against it, or else you're complicit. Therefore, because you must be held accountable, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's all.
Anyone wants to contribute?
I don't want to ask anything, but I do want to thank you for being here, and especially for sitting here after a film like this, because I can imagine that's quite something to actually do that. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you for doing this, and I think all this also being said, and I just wanted to tell the audience, for myself, this movie made me cry, but I think it's also important, especially for white people in this room, and I myself am white, and especially white cis people in this room, to think about our tears and what these tears mean in the context of this film, because my tears are both white tears of white shame, white guilt, and tears of anger. And I think it's really important in encountering struggles like this, documentaries like this, films like this, to learn how to discern between those two things. What is this tear in my eye? Is it a tear of struggle, or is it a tear of shame? So that was what I wanted to bring to the audience, and just thank you.
Thank you.
Does anyone want to comment on that, either panel or audience?
Don't be shy.
Don't be shy.
Well, yeah. It's again more a remark than a question, but I hope that all the white activist people here recognize that we have a lot to do to destruct, not only deconstruct, but destruct the whiteness of our society, the whiteness of our work, how we work. And we really need to have a very good, deep look on if our policies, our ideas, our project really benefit the people who need it most. And actually, I doubt that a lot. Or better said, I don't believe that our projects of mostly white-led and white-run organizations in the Netherlands, in Europe, in the white world, benefit people who need it most. As most of our organizations do not directly state we work with the people who need it most, with the most marginalized, and for the most marginalized. Only a couple of groups do that. And so I invite us all to have a very good look, and not just have a look, but actively destruct the system in which we are working. And time is running out, so we really need to get working. And get working because we're hardly doing it, in my experience.
I saw someone up here wanting to go.
Yeah, I was impressed by the movie also, and impressed by your explanation of the situation. I'm a board member of the patient organization TranScreen.
Could you speak up a little bit, please?
I'm a board member of the patient organization TranScreen. I think we are completely white, I'm not sure. But thinking about this, where can we make a simple start to make positive change? How can you help me?
Why can I help you? I don't know if I can help you. I get this question a lot. I was asked by Dwars, by all kinds of political parties invite me, how can we become better at this? And that's a tough one. It's a tough one. I'm not really sure whether it's entirely up to the people who are, being oppressed and who are being part of that, who are being the victims of that exclusion and that erasure, to be the ones to also come with solutions, right? I think that's a bit problematic, but I think a lot about it, and one of the things I always say, like, I think it's really important to first think about why do you want to be more diverse? Like, what do you, like, what kind of diversity do you aim for? Do you truly believe that having a black person, having a Muslim person, having a disabled person on your board, do you really intend to have it change your policies? Do you really intend it for it to be something that truly changes how you operate? Because often I find that they're not actually looking for somebody who's critical, for somebody who says, well, you've not been doing this, and this money that you're spending on here, let's go spend it over there instead, for example. Oftentimes, people want to just hire people that agree with them, that are aligned with their policies already anyways. So if you can see and acknowledge that there are glaring holes in the work and in what you produce and what you do, then maybe, only then, should you go look for other people of color. Because I've been and I've worked with people who say we need more diversity, and I come and I'm critical, and they go like, well, we don't actually want that. Spare the black person or the woman or the whatever person that you bring in, spare them a lot of trouble by being first really sure that this is what you're in for, right? And from there, you can hire me to help your organization, or hire many other diversity and inclusion, sort of inclusivity counselors and advisors and so on. Hire us. We know what you can do, but I would give you this free advice. Start there. Do you really want to be radically actually different as an organization? Because that's what's going to happen. You will have somebody go like, this is crap. And are you ready, after all those years of working together, developing these policies or whatever, for somebody to come in and say, this is bullshit?
I have to say something about that, because Peter and we know each other from COC Midden-Nederland, from the voorlichting group, so education group for on schools, and I really felt excluded in that group in a lot of ways. I'm not saying everybody was excluding me, because I know people were also, people tried to include me, but there happened a lot of things, like in our meeting, and you were also there, I think so, people made it two jokes, and I want to forget it, but I cannot forget these kind of things, because it happened there, and it was about me actually. There were made jokes about Muslims, and then it was even, so that was funny, and then weird eye rolls and things like that, and then it was even more funnier when it was about bicultural people and also low educated, and it was like, that we even find more funny, because where should we start with educating that people that are, like, in their eyes, stupid people? But stupid people, you made us stupid, because you don't give us like VWO advies, we will only get MAVO advies. So my rates will be, really high. So, and I know it's not about you, because I think you always treated me very good. But also speak up in that kind of things. Why do I only have to speak up for the bicultural Muslim people? I should also speak up about older people, because in that meeting there also was made a joke about older people, and I also remember that, because that's also exclusion. So speak up there, also for us. We should not always be the only ones to speak up, and also tell people, and if you really want diversity, then also accept me the way I am, and don't look at me like, oh, what are you wearing, this is not Western enough, this is that, but you can steal our kurtas and make it your own. I mean, there are so many things happening in so many layers. And again, I'm not blaming you, but still, we are accountable. I am also accountable if somebody makes a joke about other people and I don't say anything. So really, if you really want diversity, then also accept us, and also accept that we are really critical about things. Because in that meeting, people did not know what haram was, but you want to educate Muslim children, and you don't even know what haram is?
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, sorry.
One little thing, it's not to you. But what I want to say is, like, if you are, for example, guest in a house of diversity, and you see that we don't have a voice there anymore, because other people, white people, take the privilege of taking
all the space.
all the space, actually there I would like to have you activism. To say like, okay, was I not invited in on a let's say a boat with bicultural people? Where is their voice? Where is their story? If like the message is, okay, here we're all the same and we don't have the skin color anymore, let's have a party. Actually, I would have loved it to see people like from activist groups say like, okay, hello, I think I missed something here. There is someone from Pakistan here, there's someone from Brazil here, I've talked with a girl from Turkey, she's here. And they have these stories, the ones you just all cried over. Okay?
Yeah.
So this is what it really needs to be done. If you feel and see that this is not happening in your community, step up and ask, just question why is this? And then we can have discussion. And I think we go further and we walk the same path towards inclusion in the LGBT community.
I think I would just like to add a little bit also what you said about tears, and I think I'm asked for a lot of panels, and I have a lot of difficulty with it because it just makes it about me or something, and a lot of questions are very personal, like so how did you go through it and so on, and people come to watch these kind of movies, and there's a bit of a consumption of sort of the things that we're sharing and the pain that lies underneath it, right? There's a bit of a like, oh, I cried and it was beautiful, and then I'm gonna go back and do my work, or go live in my white neighborhood and in my white family and just live my Caucasian life, and I really think that if you're not, it's okay to cry, but if you're not also angry, if you're not like really fuming inside of you with everything that's going on in this country, and this sort of externalized, it's America, right? There's terrible things happening in America, but not so bad things. We're kind of okay in the Netherlands, right? But which is also erasure, right? So it's very much whenever people go like, yeah, but you have to admit that the Netherlands is not. You're erasing my experience. Like you're not the one for me to decide how bad it is, right? And so if you're not angry, if you don't walk away thinking, fuck, this is ridiculous. Look at this panel of brilliant and gifted and just passionate people who are basically saying, I don't get to be part, I want better, I can do better, and I want to do better, and there are people here that we're going to, and I see you. and you're not angry about this, and you only have tears, and you pay your ticket, and you go home, and you vote for the movie, great, and you're done, you don't have to do anything anymore, then, then I don't know what. Be angry, right? Be angry, go home to your board and say, this is fucked up. What are we going to do about this, right? And that militancy is what we need. In the 23rd of September, we're organizing a Pride, an intersectional block in Rotterdam. Are you going to be there? Are you going to be there angry as well, Or are you going to be like, but I went to the movie, I paid the ticket, and everything is fine now, I did my best and I had emotions. Or are you going to be like, I'm actually going to go on the street, be angry in my boardroom, speak up when somebody's making nasty jokes, go online, come to the street and vote according, do more than just consume it.
We unfortunately have to wrap up the panel because we're running out of time. I saw one question, Jane, that you want to?
No, it's okay. No, but I just wanted to give back because it's true that people have to be prepared to make changes because, when I talk to people who actually make festivals, also called feminist festivals, and they ask, oh, why are there not enough people of color there? And if they're not ready to make changes to their own policies, then forget about it, You're going to have a very limited people coming. I mean, this is it. If you keep on thinking, oh, but this is our principle, or whatever principle, and if you don't think about what your principles really are, then sorry, forget about it. Don't say people don't come, I mean, this is what I wanted to say. If you're not prepared to make changes, or people to disagree with you, and really disagree with you, then forget about it.
There are many organizations. Also, there's this feminist festival that also approached me to create a program, a workshop or something. And I've just left their emails unanswered because there are a number of things that I feel like if you're going to reach out to people from marginalized communities, especially black people, if you're going to reach out to us, if you're going to send me an email, figure out first how much money you're going to give me. Okay? Don't make me beg for it. Don't make me argue with you for it. Look in your budget and figure out a way to pay me, because many of us who are activists are actually struggling financially, right? Really struggling financially.
Yeah.
Second, they don't talk to me about what have they done or made sure in terms of their policy or their conversations they're going to have with the audience to make sure that I'm safe. That when I come with my experiences, that I'm not going to sit there and have a room full of... I've had instances where people literally go like, yeah, but why are you here? What am I supposed to do with your story? Why do I have to do something? And I'm like, and the people who invited me are saying nothing.
Yeah.
Like literally go like, yeah, would you answer that question? I'm like, fuck no, I'm not gonna answer that question. You answer that question. You know, like a lot of times I have to make those, and if you're gonna put me in a situation where you're not gonna protect me, where you're not gonna create a safe space for me, then pay me at least. If you're gonna want me to work for free, fine, but make sure then that there are gonna be black people in my audience. That it's gonna be something that I'm gonna get something out of it as well. Like workshops that I just give and give and give and I get nothing back.
No, but this is exactly what you're saying, this whole financial thing. And I said, well, you have to think about it, you know, this whole financial, if you're not ready to provide, then what do you expect, you know? You cannot say, well, this is part of our principle, we just don't pay, you know? So I'm like, okay, then this is what you get. You don't get anything also. You know?
But also, I think there are organizations that are really small that have no money, and I'm willing to do things with them if they make sure that from that experience, I get something out of it as well.
But this is, you have to understand, am I taking only? You know, and this whole thing, which I think is not considered, because I think they try their best. I think they're trying, you know, but it's not enough now. You're really not enough. So it's almost like, but it's good. That's all I wanted to say.
Can I just say one little small thing? I want to an open invitation to everyone. This year, the Trans Day of Remembrance will be done by TDOR, but also by the bicultural trans community. We are going to organize it in the theme of sex work, because many or let's say a large amount of people who died by murder each year are sex workers, and they are bicultural. So I hope you will spread the word and tell it to your friends if you're not coming, so they might be coming. The TDOR is this year bicultural with an in-house, with a content.
Can we also thank Freer for having organized so many of them the years before?
Always.
Well, I want to thank you all for your time. I especially want to thank our panel, Isjed, Dinah, Lashawn, Olave. Thank you so much.